A lot of the things that I've mentioned in terms of Facebook and posts are connected to our white friends, our white audience. Not the gaslighting part, although has been some. Most of our friends, at least mine, have been asking the question: What do I post? What don't I post? What can I say? What can I not say? Especially because they have black friends who are like, "This is our moment. Don't say anything." And so we want to take this moment to kind of talk for a little bit. What is the appropriate white response to this? What's appropriate for a person who is non-black in the midst of all this going on? Uh, what should they say? What should they not say? O'Shea, young buck, go for it.
Hey,
Yeah, I think, man, to start off with, the best thing that you can say is something. I feel like at the point, and we've seen it all over social media, the point where you don't say anything, you now default to the other side. But with saying that, when you're saying something, you have to. So I've heard a lot of in conversations that I've had with people that say, no, I am not racist. I actually choose not to see color. And this is where I'm going to
oh
step
boy.
out here and I'm going to say, no, that's the thing that you don't say
Yeah.
because I want you to see my color because I'm not ashamed of it. And at the moment where you choose to deny me my race, at the point where you choose to deny me my ethnicity, you're taking that away because you're ashamed of it. And I think that's what we really, really need to look at because now they're creating a narrative where they're allowing themselves to actually ignore the racial complexes that I'm going through. When you
Hmm.
say that I'm choosing not to see your color, you're now choosing to say, yeah, you're not getting pulled over by the cops because of your color, because of your race. You're getting pulled over because your tint is 6% instead of 5%. Or you're getting pulled over because he noticed your tire was flat and he wanted to help you. You're taking away those complexes that I'm actually going through. You're now saying that because of that, that man, I'm actually not going through that. When you choose to look at my color, when you choose to look at my race, you're sorry, when you choose not to, you're actually dismantling your own prejudice. You know what I mean? Because we all have them. So at the point where you say, "Man, I'm choosing not to see your race," you're going, "Ah, the prejudice that we have, they're not actually really there because I don't see race. I just see gray."
Mm.
And that's where it's and mind you, when I talk about this, when I talk about saying, don't say I don't see color, I get where a lot of their hearts have come from. I get their heart is from a sincere place where their wording is just wrong. Where it's not I don't see color, it's saying I appreciate your color. So I think when we try to move forward, when we try to educate ourselves, the best thing that a white person can say, the way that they can speak up is say, man, I see your color. I appreciate your color. I want to embrace it. I want to learn about it so that we can all come together and we can celebrate each other's cultures in harmony. Like that's the greatest thing. I love learning about cultures. I love being able to celebrate your culture with you and I want you to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think we talk about this word briefly of the word revival, right? And I think so many people have painted revival as thousands of people gathering around in a stadium and lifting their hands to God, or they see it as people packed under a tent, for 8 nights in a row, listening to a preacher. But if we look at the catalyst and the definition of revival, it's actually man going to fellow man and rectifying the wrongs that have been done and reconciling. And I think that the when we look at the white response to this, or at least the response of people who may find themselves on the side of the oppressor versus the oppressed, I think I want to tell my friends to mend the bridges, to mend and build the bridges. So it's I like it's not necessarily that you have to go and say, "Oh, on behalf of all white people." We don't want that. We don't want you to apologize on behalf of all white people or on behalf of the oppressor or the man or whatever you want to call it. But just quick story, this past week I got a very touching message from someone who I had not spoken to in 15 years, who had recalled that they had made a racist remark to me at a camp. And at the time they had said sorry, but they didn't realize the gravity of the situation, of the comment that they had made. And they went back and they were saying how we want to, he wants to raise his family right. And so because of this, he has to go and now reconcile. And I think that this is in part where we're going to see some of the healing that we really want to see for everyone, is this idea that that people can go and reconcile with one another. And I think that's a strong place to start. We don't need you to be the hero or the white savior or anything like that to go across and to say like, hey, on behalf of my brothers and sisters, I'm so sorry. We're so sorry. But it would be good if you could go back and mend the bridges that have been burnt.
Galvin.
Yeah, this might sound controversial. This may be my hot take, Stefan Watson esque thing, but I think you need to have grace for yourself. And that sounds awkward and that seems difficult. Last week I talked about the conversation that we need to be having, that it's a hand in hand kind of thing. And the truth is, 7 days later, my ideas were hard to practice for me. And so there are these great thoughts, and we give mental assent as to what should be done, what could be done. But it takes time, and it takes a step after step after step after step. And it really takes a lifetime to live a lifetime. And so understand that you are where you are. It's taking you your whole life to get there. And it's going to take not just a moment. It's going to take a significant amount of decision, of deconstruction of thoughts, a reconstruction of ideas, and have grace for yourself. You're not going to have all the right questions. You're not going to have all the right answers. And just as some of the guys have said before, you just have to take it step by step by step. One of the things that I've been thinking about, how can I help you, is been the number one question, whether it's a text message or a DM. And it's a difficult one to answer because I don't have all the answers. I don't have all of them. One of the things that I think that we can do to start is, I think we need to start talking to the people who are helping set up our education system. I think there's a reform that's needed. One of my friends, Eugenia, the other day was talking about Black history and how it seems that we're not talking enough about how Black people have contributed to the history that has developed the spaces that we live in and function in now. And I mean, when most people only know that a Black guy invented peanut butter, that's a problem. It's a problem. And so I think we need to start talking about history a little bit different. How do you fix that? You start talking to the Board of Education. Start talking to MPs. How do we bring reform? The questions don't always have to be directed to us. We can start asking those that are establishing the systems that need it. In terms of the apology thing, I know Adam just talked a little bit about it. Don't apologize unless you have to. It's a big thing. Like, if there is something that you know you need to apologize for, you know exactly who to go to. Don't come to just every single Black person that you know and say, please forgive me. We don't have the power to, sprinkle holy water and absolve people. We are not priests to the racial systems that are in place. And we love you and we're appreciative of it. But go to the right people for the right things. And my last thought would be, just keep going. Just keep going, again, step by step by step by step. And this word picture or analogy that I think of that was shared to me once, it's like turning on a tap that hasn't been used for a long time. It's very, very violent at the beginning. It shakes, it shudders. It looks like Kareem's screen when he's yelling at us, and it spurts, and out comes this like really grimy, dirty, stagnant water. And it's violent, it's gross, it's hard to look at, there's a mess to clean up. But the longer that you allow the tap to run, the smoother it becomes, the cleaner the water gets. And I think as you're flexing this muscle of awareness and you're being jolted and your whole world's being shaken, know that it's okay, but keep going. Keep going. Don't stop. One of the things I've been talking about is fight the fatigue. We cannot get tired. Yes, we're seeing great progress, and you're seeing and experiencing great awareness. You're getting resources. Don't discredit yourselves. I'm learning a lot from white people right now. A lot of followers that I have are informing me of books I need to be reading, shows I need to be watching, thoughts that I need to rethink within myself. So don't discredit yourself. Just keep the tap going, keep taking step after step, and give yourself some grace. It's not going to fix itself tonight. If we want this, it's going to take a lifetime, again, to live a lifetime. And it's not for us. It's not just for us. It's for the generations that are coming.
Let me ask this question to the house, and then I know Tim has something to say, and so is Jonesy. On one hand, we have white friends who are, really helpful, and it's a lot of our white friends who are sharing our content. It's a lot of our white friends who are making the brand strong and adding to our subscriptions. And remember to subscribe to the channel, subscribe, like, all that sort of stuff. But there's also white people who would respond to each other, and they gaslight each other. And so we have white people who write something like Black Lives Matter, and then a white person would then gaslight them. And I watched on like a legend of ministry and of work, added an illustration on her page, and people went and then made fun of this person's mental health, made fun of them as a person in general. And you're like, so I don't know, this might be a hot take moment for us in the house, but what would you say to the person who feels like they need to constantly be the one who's correcting everybody who is about this social change, who's about having the lights come on in their minds and saying, like, there needs to be something different? What would you say to the person who's watching our show, and dare I even say hate watching this, so they find something to actually, like, go and hate about? So anybody in the house, and then after that, Tim, Jonesy. But anybody, any thoughts?
Don't hit send. Write it in a journal. Let it sit for a bit. And out of this group, all of you know I am the worst for it. I will tell you exactly how I feel, and I don't care very much. And sometimes that's a blessing, sometimes that's a curse. But when we're talking about the gravity of this, we're talking about how large this is and how deep it goes. Sometimes it's just better to write it on paper, think about it for a long time, and until it's worked itself out in you, in the different areas that it needs to. Please stop attacking one another. It's not helping anybody.
Yeah, I have two things that I would say to this. One is, anytime we have something to say, I remember a mentor of mine said this to me: when you have a feeling towards something, express it when you are on the mountaintop and not in the valley. When you're in the valley, you don't really clearly see things. There's things that are obstructing your view, that you can't fully speak to something with proper perspective. So in line with what you said, Cal, let time wait until you can get to that place where you're on that mountaintop and you have proper perspective. That's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say would be, if you're getting ready to write something, and we all kind of know, doesn't matter if you're white, black, yellow, brown, you kind of know where something's going to be a little bit controversial. My suggestion to that would be to actually speak to somebody who this may affect and ask them what they think about it before you actually put it out. Don't just put it out because you just feel you've got to get this off your chest. You know what? If you want to get off your chest, that's fine. Go speak to somebody that you know that you can trust, get it off with them, and then ask them, is it okay for me to post this? Is this going to actually bring about positive change, or is this going to make it worse? And so those are the two things that I would say to that.
Michael Caine in a movie, The Dark Knight, says this line to Christian Bale, who's Batman, and he says, "Some men aren't looking for anything logical."
Yeah,
Swansea
go there.
will burn.
Can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world.
That's a great line, man.
That's such a great line.
And the reality is that some people just want to hate. Let them hate. Don't engage.
Haters gonna hate.
Shake them off.
Yeah.
Young King.
Nicolayan.
His new thing now is anytime I'm on a Zoom call, he just kind of quietly slides his way in. So
he wants to be famous like his dad.
He wants to be famous.
Yeah,
He's like, I look like Fred Van Vliet, Dad.
Federico. Jonesy, Tim, you guys are the last words in this segment.
All right, so I'll let Tim go last, but I just wanted to say, you know,
Wait. Why did you say I'll go first? Like you said, like it was so polite.
I know.
I'll
I
let
was
Tim
trying
go
to
last.
I'll go
'Cause I'm gonna go.
because Tim was saying he wanted to go last. I was like, all right, man, I'll let the bro go
It's
last.
like I never said I wanted to go last.
Yeah.
I just said I wanted to go next.
This guy suggestively told Tim he's going last.
Yeah. Because
Okay, he's the dad.
he's got the better
He's the
thing,
dad.
so it's all good.
Cold.
No, because what I wanted to say was what people also need to know is over these next few weeks and months and stuff, they're going to have a very heavy load to carry. And someone texted me the other day and said, you know, you have quite a heavy load to carry. And I said, actually, my load is pretty light because I've been carrying this load for the last 42 years. So I've learned how to be strong in it. It's actually you who are going to be carrying the heavier load now because you've never carried a load like this. And so I would encourage our white people build up the strength and the fortitude because as long as this goes, and hopefully this goes for a very long time, and I'm not talking about protests, I'm not talking about all that stuff, I'm talking about change. Hopefully change is here to stay, and we can carry this momentum and keep walking 3, 4 months, 12 months, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it goes, and that you're ready to carry it because people will attack you. Haters are going to hate, and you're going to have to stand up for what is right.
And one of the things that I've got is I'll tell a story. In this past week, my manager from work, I have two jobs.
Hey, let's go.
Like a good West Indian boy.
Let's go. 2 jobs.
2 things, 2 jobs.
Hey.
Oh no.
You can't forget the pair drags, okay?
No pair
Stop
drags.
The pair drag.
Stop it.
South
Take
Americans.
it.
Over this last week and a half, I would say, I've been fortunate to have one of my managers, leaders at work. She's white, and as we are in the midst of this whole shutdown, it's like I'm working from home, and it's like we connect once every week. And the first thing she always asks is, how am I doing with everything that is going on? And it's one of those things that a lot of the times I would say the most important thing is to be able to check in on people that you are because one of the fallacies of social media is that we want to say the right thing for the masses. But if we aren't saying the right things or taking the time to create space for those that you are in relationship with, that it impacts them, then it's like there's no point in you posting anything on social media. That itself is one of, I would say, the most and it's one of those things that for you, it's maybe in this position where it's like, I don't have any black friends. Then for you, I would say it's not to go and like post an ad on Facebook Marketplace or something like that going, looking for a black friend.
Without an ad.
Mercy said no. Mercy said no.
Without an ad.
Oh,
Toronto
my
Star.
gosh.
The classifieds.
Was it misconnections? Wasn't that like a thing in the newspaper back in the
Misconnection.
day?
Yo, these kids don't even know about those things. Yo, we're gonna catch a paper.
Saw a black guy with an orange hat at the bus stop earlier. If you read this,
Timothy. Give me the last word.
Those things that if you don't have any, then it comes down to the question of how is the life that you're living. And for some of you, it may be the reality that you are living in a place that there are no black people, and that itself is all right. It's like a lot of times we can't choose. I didn't choose to be born in Toronto. I just happen to be here. This is where my parents moved to. But it's one of those things of looking at ways that you can then be an ally in amongst your people group within the people that you do community with. And I know it's one of those things that Adam himself has talked about in previous chats, and it's like all I'll say is go back and look for whatever he says, because whatever he says is good. And as he's acting, but it's one of those things that it also reminds me. I got a text message from my girlfriend. For those of you that don't know, my girlfriend, she is Chinese.
He's off the market. He's off the market.
Tim's got a girlfriend.
Tim's got a girlfriend.
Tim's got a tick.
Tim's got a girlfriend.
Only one.
And it's only one
okay?
thing.
Only one ting. Only one ting. No paratracks. Only one ting.
Paratracks. No ting.
And she sent me a message. She was watching the Ahmaud Arbery segment, and she had said this. She's like, I don't find it funny that you guys were laughing at the story of one of the members in the House experiencing racism. And it made me stop and think, and I don't know what to say to that. But then I realized that, especially for us here, growing up with a West Indian heritage, for a lot of us, it's like, I know Jason has a different story, but it's like the one thing I've seen, and I'm thinking of like my parents and my mom, where my parents come from Guyana. They're going through their own set of racial tensions and craziness. But as my mom was playing the stuff and telling me about it, she was laughing. And what I realized was that for those of us, especially within that have a West Indian heritage, the way that we cope, the way that we get by, the way that we relax, the way that we move forward is to laugh. Because for a lot of us, that is the only thing that we may be able to do. And as Andrew had said, it's like, I've been carrying this weight for, in his case, 42 years. And it's like, sometimes there's no point in adding more weight to our packs. And the only thing is just to be able to laugh about what is going on. Yeah. Because you know what? We have another day. We've survived another pullover by a cop. It's one of those things that it's like we are able to see our family, our friends, and at the end of the day, what we do is we laugh because life is too important to get bogged down, and we've got to move forward.
So, with that being said, that's the end of our first segment. Tim's lines and words about finding the hope and the humor in the worst of circumstances is going to lead us into our second segment. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This is the House of Common Show.